obviously, we just had the combine. NFL draft is coming up in 50 days, which both seems like a long time and a short time. We've gotten a lot of comments about different guys from the draft really quickly because we had like 3 comments about it right when I started the show. Spencer Rattler, are people wanting to draft him to be the backup? I don't even.
Yeah, well,
funny, right? Like even when you have a quarterback, people want to talk about quarterbacks.
Right. They always do. Spencer Rattler's a 3rd-round draft pick. They're not going to take a quarterback that high, so that's automatically no. Wide receiver in terms of Xavier Worthy and Xavier Legette, I don't think that either one of those guys happens because they go by mid-second, and so that's between the 1st and the 2nd. Niners aren't going to do that either. And again, the priorities are the lines. So draft Rattler and Legette. Well, sure, if you live in South Carolina, you'd be really happy, but I don't think there's any chance that they pick either one of those guys because of where they fall and which positions. That I think the Niners are looking elsewhere and have to. Your needs are on the offensive line, a new edge to go opposite Bosa, a defensive tackle to give them more depth there, linebacker, defensive back that can play the run and blitz. There's a lot of stuff they need. And receiver is a luxury if your plan is to keep Ayuk and to keep Jennings. And I think that is their plan.
I definitely agree. Really quick, I don't know what it is. I don't know what you said, but my dad said that's correct, Tom.
Cool.
So
okay.
whatever you were saying, and I think he's about 30 seconds behind us too.
Okay.
So something that that we've moved past on, but I like that my dad is somewhere like agree. Cool. I wanted to ask you. Charvarius Ward is another guy I remember I wrote down that they could restructure, but because I think that they'll want to keep him around for a while. But when talking about pick 31, I wanted to ask you, is it best to go best player available at 31 or to understand that your biggest priority is that offensive line and potentially be willing to trade up to get an offensive lineman? What do you anticipate they do?
I hope that the Tim Kawakami rumor is true. He's written that the Niners are looking to trade up to get a plug-and-play tackle, and that means a starter on day one. And to me, the starters at offensive tackle
are going to be gone before.
Are gone. So you've got the players that the Niners have talked to or met with. So Talisa Fuaga from Oregon State, he's, the Jets like him at 10. Olufashinu is apparently dropping because his hands were so small. 8.5 hands, right? Really small. Most of the draft is 9.5 or more. J.C. Latham from Alabama, he's huge. I don't think the Niners would be interested unless he lost a lot more weight. Amarius Mims is my guy. That's Thanos. That's the guy that he's the absolute beast. And the question with him is he's 15 to 20. So if you were to trade up, you would need to give up the 1st and the 2nd round pick to go get 20 in Pittsburgh. And what I find interesting is the Niner meetings, they haven't met with any players that go around their 2nd round pick, except for one guy, Christian Haynes from
maybe
UConn.
They are more open to trading them.
So I think that they could be looking at 1st and 2nd to move up. And especially because the 2nd round at the end of it is a dead zone where it's just the player value is basically 10 spots higher or 10 spots lower. And so it's a lot better to move out of that spot because it's no man's land. So if you offered Pittsburgh 1st and 2nd for 20, I think the Niners would love it, but I'm not sure that Pittsburgh would because pick 63 doesn't have as much value as it normally would.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I do think they're looking to move up. So Fuaga, Fashanu, Latham, Mims, Troy Fautanu from UW, those are the tackles that can start day one. After that, no. So Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, a lot of people love him, big, athletic, but he doesn't have weapons to his game. He has size. Kingsley Suamataia from BYU, fast, good athlete, but he has to add power, lateral speed, quickness. There's a lot to his game and technique that he's got to work on. He's unpolished. The feedback from Mobile was that he got beat by power and speed in the one-on-one workouts. And he's being put in the middle of the second, where initially he was late first. He's dropping somewhat. Then who else we got? Patrick Paul from Houston is raw as it gets. He hasn't been coached up. He would not be able to start year one.
Yeah, that's not what the 49ers want right now.
Yeah, and though they did meet with him. And then Kieran Amagaji from Yale, who's getting a lot of hype. And he's a good athlete, good player. But again, he's somebody that you put away for a year and then put back on the field. So it's those 5 guys at tackle. All of them would require a trade up at least to 26. That would be 31 and 98. So that would be their second, third round pick. And that would get you to Tampa Bay at 26. And then you should be able to get one of those 5 tackles or a guy that's projected at center, though he plays tackle, Graham Barton from Duke. He's another one that could be there. So I think that those are the 6 players that they would most likely be looking at if they go offensive line in the first round. And nearly every single one of them would require a trade up, depending on which big board you believe is accurate. According to some boards, Barton will still be there. I think Barton would be a great fallback option for them at center.
Okay. Now, my thing is, I felt like John Lynch kind of even submitted that they were going to go tackle in the first round because they were kind of asked about it. And what did he say? Like, wait and see, right?
Yeah, he hinted
kind
at
of gave
it.
a little chuckle.
And they also met with practically every offensive tackle that's going to be taken that's within reach of them trading up and then trading down in the second. So if you go by last year, they met with nearly every tight end. They picked 2 of them. So them meeting with this many tackles tells me that they're interested.
Yeah, but they drafted Cameron Latu with one of those, so it's just
got a question here in the chat on Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin.
Yes.
Problem with him is that he's got great speed and he's smart, but in the one-on-ones at Mobile, he was ragdolled by some players. He was beat pretty badly on one day of practice. He came back and did well, but there was one day where he was just a punching bag. So I don't know, but they did meet with him. So he does have the requisite speed and smarts that Shanahan would want. But I think that Barton is the guy that if they can't get a tackle, Barton is the great fallback at center, either at 26 or 31. And there's people that love Barton. Louis Riddick from ESPN says he's going to be an all-pro. I spoke with or exchanged on Twitter with Lance Zierlein from NFL.com.
Yeah.
And he's based in Houston, so he knows the Shanahan system when Gary Kubiak ran it for Houston. He's well-versed in the system. And his dad is a 30-year offensive line coach. So Zierlein really knows his stuff. And he said that Barton is the guy. He's the perfect fit at center for the Niners offense. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and Brendel he's done okay, but he's a little bit older. And you do see, like, by the resources that 49ers put into Alex Mack, they at times have really valued that center position. So I could see them doing it again, for sure. Yeah. Oh, muted. I can't hear you, Tom. Tom. This is my signal to Tom when he stops working. Yes, I would love Graham as center. Hi, guys. We're just waiting for Tom to come back. I believe that his computer will start working again because it did last time. I have no idea if I should, like, bring him down or if it'll just click back on.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, well. We've been having some internet issues in my building. Yeah.
You just like to make sure people are paying attention. We want to keep them on the edge of their seats.
I hope.
Is Tom going to be here? Is he not? You gotta get your comment in quick. You gotta be locked in, or else Tom might dip out. All right.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry about that,
worries.
Ashley. I'm sorry.
Oh no, not at all.
Your dad says we can take a center that has to wait a year. I disagree. I think that they need an upgraded center now.
I agree. They need.
And you look at the line assignment problems that they had in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Jake Brenda's
That's something, Daddy, that Kyle Juszczyk is supposed to be helping out with. is he usually helps out with that offensive line and getting them in the right positions. But the problem is? He only plays for 40% of the snaps. Sorry, love you, Daddy. So the other 60% of the time it was on Brendel. So
the
now
juice tennis game continues. Yeah. But I think that the other factor with Brendel is he's 32. And he was an undrafted player. And he's done well. And give him credit. He's played well. It's just he's optimized who he is. But I think that it's time where they need to move in and say we need a top-level talent. Look at what happened to the Niner run game when they did have Alex Mack. And if you've got a player that, if Riddick is right and he's an all-pro, if Zuerlein is right and he's a perfect fit, then this is somebody you have to look at and say that there are other centers they can get later in the draft, but Barton's the guy. And that could work. But if it's me at GM, I would make a trade up for Amarius Mims if I could. Because I think he's the freak.
You've been on that.
He's the guy you want, and he would also be the guy that could move left to take over for Trent Williams when he's done. But we'll see. Cedric Van Pren, good player. And he could go in a spot where, third round, maybe if that's what they want to do. It's the third round. The Niners have talked to a ton of people. Yeah. Well, they've talked. They've got two picks in the third round. They've got 94 and 98. I think they're going to need to move up to get who they want in terms of who they would probably target. But it should be easy enough with all the other picks they have to be able to do something. But clearly they're focused in on the third round. That's where they are spending a lot of their resources in meeting with the people at the Combine.
Now, how much would they have to trade up to get to a spot where they could draft Mims?
Mims, I think, goes from 15 to 20, but that's me. I'm optimistic on him. I've seen some where a lot of people have him at like 18. Some people have him as low as 27. I don't think that'll happen based on his measurables and what he did in the 40 and the 10. I think he's going to move up, but we'll see. He's only started 8 games, and that's why people might be hesitant. He had ankle surgery. He had tightrope surgery. And so there's some issues with him in terms of availability.
I don't know. 49ers did so good
when Mims is healthy.
No experience.
Yeah. It's just when Mims is healthy, he's won. He's just dominant. You talk about an offensive lineman that has weapons, Mims does. That's the kind of lineman that I want to get.
Yes, I agree. Now, I will say red flag for the 49ers bringing in someone with little experience because they do seem to struggle with that. But if he can stay healthy, I agree. I think you've made a good case for him. Now, I am interested if they traded their second round pick and their first round pick, if that gets them high enough to get a guy like that. Would they also trade a third round pick? Would that help?
I don't think so. I think that based on who they've met with, they're putting a lot of emphasis on that third round. And they've got 2 picks. And it makes sense because that's where there's a good tier in terms of a deep pool of talent in the third round, where you're getting great value. You're getting guys that are very good later in the draft when you normally would not. So if you want to say that, where's the sweet spot of the draft, it's early to mid-second and throughout the third round. And so I would expect that the Niners are going to focus on the third. Zach Zinter, he's coming off a leg break. Zinter says that he's going to participate in Michigan's Pro Day, so we'll see how he does.
Leg break? Ow.
Yeah, he had a nasty injury. He couldn't play in the national championship, but he's normally, before the injury, he was thought to be a second-round talent. And now because of the injury, he'll go third, maybe early fourth.
Okay. Yeah, they got to be careful with those leg injuries. I get nervous with the 49ers and their history of kind of getting excited about a guy who probably has all the talents in the world, but you need health has to be your number one factor, because we're talking about getting guys that can play this year. The most important way that you can play this year is if you're healthy enough to play.
And Trent Baalke is no longer the GM, so can we get healthy players, please? Yeah, I get that.
He's ahead of his time with these ACLs not being a big deal now.
Yeah, true. Well, but the surgery's caught up and proved him right. So we'll see.
He's over there in Jacksonville, like, I told them.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years late, but
Yeah. He was eventually proven right. But I think one of the themes of this draft is that the Niners are going to be looking for starters. And so how do you get a starting offensive lineman? You trade up for the tackle, or you trade up in a small amount to go up and get Barton. And that's your first starter. And then in the third round, I think that they're also looking for starters. And that can be Cedric Gray, the linebacker from North Carolina, Cam Hart, the defensive back from Notre Dame, that's good run and pass, that tested well.
I like the idea of them drafting a linebacker. Sorry for kind of being stuck on that, but because you have that guy who could potentially, if he's a starter, come in, play while Greenlaw is still recovering, and then if Greenlaw is able to play, now you have your next like Aziz, but you have him under contract for quite a while. So I really
cheap,
like that.
as a third round pick, right? And he fits the Niner profile in terms of exactly what they want from a linebacker. Cedric Gray provides that. He can shoot the gaps to get run stops, and he's good in coverage, and he's just smart. Covers the whole field, is a great player. Played very well in the Senior Bowl in practices and in the game.
And we know that Senior Bowl means a lot to Kyle Shanahan.
Debo.
That's where the bromance originated. Now, really quick, just to get your quick final thoughts on free agency. I've been kind of anticipating that when they look for that bookend opposite Nick Bosa, that they're going to want to look within free agency, or are you assuming that they're going to want to draft a guy for that?
I think that they're best off using free agency for the edge.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And
I think
depends,
let the draft be your offensive, more offensive driven. And I think when you're looking for key spots to kind of fill in, that's where you can look at free agency. Maybe have one guy that you overspend on. I've heard a lot of good things about Danielle Hunter. Is that someone who's even too much? Is that too much or no?
I don't think that he's realistic for them, because he's going to want a 3-year deal for $60 million plus. And the Niners aren't going to want to pay an edge $20 million after they've taken care of Purdy. They would want Danielle Hunter for 1 year, and Hunter took a 1 year, $20 million deal. So I think he's going to want 3 years. Yeah,
that makes sense. Now, what about Jonathan? Sorry, I have some people written down. Jonathan
Greenard. That's my guy. I've been championing him for a long time. Yeah.
There we go.
The key with Greenard is that he is an edge setter in the run. He's top 10 in run defense, and he's top 10 in pass rush win rate. He doesn't have a great arsenal of pass rush moves, but if you've got the other three guys that start, all you really need from that other edge is a guy that cleans up, that can get the opportunity sacks. And that's what he did in Houston this year, and he had 12 and a half sacks. Drake Jackson, I don't think you can count on whatever you're going to get from you are, but I would think that you can't risk starting Drake Jackson again.
No,
he hasn't proven that he's capable of doing that. So Greenard is the guy that I would want, because he's run and pass, and if there's one thing they really need, it's an edge center in the run, and they've got a lot of need for that. And he plugs in also as a guy that can still pass rush, and has done well. 12 and a half sacks, 15 quarterback hits, a lot of pressures. He played very well.
I like that a lot. And played for D'Amico Ryans already, so knows the system, knows kind of what Kyle Shanahan is going to want to, or is going to expect. Tom is breaking up again, but that's okay, because we're about to end it. But I did want to talk about Greenard, because I had seen Tom write about him, and I got excited about the idea of bringing in someone from that Houston defense. Obviously, Houston really overperformed this year, their expectations, and I think I just missed D'Amico Ryans.
I am so sorry. Our internet is not the best in this building. It can be inconsistent late afternoon. People get home, and then everybody jumps on the internet.
There we go. Funky. For everyone who doesn't know, Tom did me a favor, and we started a little bit later because of my travels. So, everyone.
But come on, it's cool that you're even doing the show after flying from New York all the way across.
Well, I was gonna say I have to find my sister moved this desk around, and now the light has been all weird all show. I've been trying to fix it. But I was just saying that I thought that your the guy that you've been highlighting, Jonathan, really
Greenard.
Greenard, good against the run, 12.5 sacks last season, used to the system because of D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea
How
what
much?
a deal with him would look like?
Spot Track has his market value at 13.4 a year, but I think that the edge market always goes higher than what Spot Track usually projects. So it might take over 15, it might take 18. Some people have written it might take over 20. And if that's the case, they can't go there. But if it stays in the teens, I think that Greenard is somebody that they can go after.
Worth it.
But if he gets into the 20s, then the Niners might hesitate and say he's getting too rich for us. But if I had to rank the edges in the free agent market, he's at the top of the list. If they need to go cheaper, Jadeveon Clowney had a great year in Baltimore. Yeah. He can be had for like 9 to 10. Zadarius Smith is still a solid player. They're older, but if you could sign these guys for 1 year, and get them for around 10, it's better to do that than to keep Chase Young or the rumor of go get Joey Bosa. I mean, Bosa's played 9 games in 2 years.
I'm not a fan of Joey Bosa. I think he's more name than he is. Yeah. Now with Greenard, would he take a 1 year deal?
I don't think so because he's young. He's 26, so he's looking to get a long-term deal, and he's looking to get as much money as he can.
The 49ers, though.
I think he would. If the market goes up to 18 and he wants a long-term deal, the Niners would take care of him. Houston wants to keep him, but the question is at what price? Because they don't necessarily have a lot of room. They would have already taken care of him too.
Yeah, that is.
And they just paid 3 years, 36 to keep Dalton Schultz. So they've already spent some money, and it's going to be harder. They can't franchise tag him. They just want to see is there really a way that we can get Greenard for less than $15 million? That's what they want. I think the market would take it up to the high teens and maybe the 20s. It won't be cheap, but it'd be worth it.
Is it true that the 49ers already have one of the most expensive rosters in the NFL? I saw that being written about.
Yeah.
Jed York, pull out your paycheck, buddy. Let's go. I think that getting a guy like that would be worth it, especially considering all the resources, draft picks. We're just talking about Drake Jackson. I think solidifying that defensive line is worth it to the 49ers. I mean,
sure.
I don't.
And for a young player that's ascending and really adding a lot to his game,
and that's
26 and he's coming up. Yeah, I do the same thing. Is that if you can get a player in ascension, that's an investment worth making. And you also save a lot of money, or at least a lot of draft capital, in terms of what you can do in avoiding having to take an edge in the draft. That taking a player off of the draft is good. Devin Culp, UW. I'm in Seattle, so I see these guys. The problem with Culp is that he really didn't do a lot at UW, and then a walk-on beat him in terms of tight end. That Culp is one of those that he's going to be a very good player in terms of special teams.
But not that tight end.
Can you use him as an H-back? Maybe. But I think the guy that they're looking at for an H-back is Jaheim Bell from Florida State, and they met with him. So I think that's the guy that they would look at probably more than Culp. Culp didn't play for Washington. He didn't get on the field much. He tested well, but what did he really do for the Huskies? Not a lot.
Yeah, I think the 49ers really value film more so even than the combine nowadays. We've seen them kind of look towards that, and I think that's the right thing to do. If you look at the player that they took first overall in Jacksonville like 2 years ago, they kind of went with combine results versus film, and I don't necessarily think that was the right choice. And I think most teams try to stay away.
Most teams try to balance it out, but But what you basically want to do is use the tape to say that, okay, this is what we can expect, and then take the combine and say, okay, does this affirm what we think of this player?
Yeah.
And
but you don't want to
as
just make your
opposed
decision
to
based
saying,
on that.
no, I'm going to base it on the combine. No,
Yeah.
that's the reverse of the way
I
you
think
should
I
go
think
about it.
that is a thing. Like as fans, I've noticed. I've definitely done this before. Like you just get crushes on people who perform well in the combine, and you kind of like try to dismiss their college tape. When I feel like when we look at NFL success, usually college success is a good indicator if you're going to be successful in the NFL.
Right. And the other danger with the combine is it can show you what they do well, but necessarily not show you what they don't do well.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
like a
if
skills
you run
competition
really
versus
fast
the
and say,
game.
oh, look at this guy, he's great. Yeah, but he doesn't have any moves and he comes straight up out of his stance and he gets washed out of the play. I mean, you can say that his combine is his first 2 steps on the field. And then what happens on the 3rd step is things blow up. And the combine, there's no way of knowing that. It's part of why the NFL pays so much attention to Mobile, because you have those one-on-ones. And you can see what the player actually does, as opposed to Indy, where you see the athletic skill, but you don't necessarily see what they can do on the field.